The X-Men are in danger. Let's talk about it. So, previously on X-Men, they do a Magneto and Professor X love video. It was like an AMV made by myself about how much these two are in love. And we see how much Magneto's death affects Charles going on throughout the episode. And unfortunately for Charles, or maybe fortunately, Polaris falls into his lap and he gets to kind of deal with his emotions in a sort of healthy way. I'm not sure it's very healthy for Polaris, but it seemed to be helpful for him, which is how Professor X rolls. The opening this week is mostly just the original show opening, but remixed a little. So we got Bishop here running around on the X-Men grounds. I think that's really cool. Bishop gets his own like nameplate, which shows off his powers and how they work. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but when I was younger, I never really knew what Bishop's powers were when I watched this show originally. So I'm so glad that they visually make it more understandable what his abilities are. And I love the little flourishes and stuff and a little effects they've added to different powers. Like they've added the Marvel Rivals butterfly thing to Psylocke. They also use this really cool Aurora Borealis effect for Polaris whenever she uses her powers, which is just fantastic. My boy Quentin is back in the opening in this scene where I think it's supposed to be Jubilee grabbing the chain link fence, but since she's no longer just one of the students and she's a full-fledged X-Man, she gets a proper intro card. Quentin Quire is here grabbing the cage, asking for help. We seem to have put Chamber in the students category, which is very interesting because if I remember right, Chamber is like a grown-ass man in like his 30s. Either he's still a grown-ass man in his 30s, but he hasn't ranked up out of X school to graduate to full-fledged X-Man, or they DH'd him and he's a teenager now. Hey yo, you dealing with the X Factor? X Factor fans, come get your juice! You too, X-Pac. The line for the juice is on the right. I think it's very funny that they put scenes of the X-Men training in the Danger Room in the opening. They seem to do that a lot, where they hint to what's happening in the episode with the opening, not just by having cool character shots, but they find cool ways to remix the original OP to add stuff that's relevant, and I think that that's fantastic. This show is obviously a labor of love, and I'm so glad that I get to watch it. Hey Chuck, this is probably not healthy. This is not a good way of dealing with your stress and depression after losing your friend. Maybe you should actually seek therapy. I know that you're like, nothing can get inside my head, I'm Charles Xavier. But maybe somebody should, and maybe that somebody should be a therapist, you know? Maybe you should find a telepath that does that for a living. Are there any telepaths that do that for a living? If not, maybe he should hit up Doc Samson, or maybe not. Doc Samson's kind of insane. Figure out how to cross dimensions and go give Harley Quinn a shout. I hear she's doing great work with Bruce Wayne. I love that Danger is just this maniac who's gonna do exactly what you said to do. That's one thing that computers do. An AI is never gonna be able to be a teacher, for instance, or a doctor, and understand nuance. They're just very straightforward. I love that this episode is a not so thinly veiled critique on AI. The only thing it was missing, honestly, was for Danger to need copious amounts of water to survive. Which, who knows, maybe she does. I'm once again recommending Eat Man for anybody who likes incredibly literal characters. This is so cool. Lorna's so cool. I wish that they would like lean into the big hair kind of 80s aesthetic that she has if they ever put her in a movie. Screw you, Organization 13, with your religious fanaticism. I was down with this, and she probably killed a few of them because I doubt every single one of these dudes can swim. You know, there was one guy like Arnold from Magic School Bus that was like, I can't swim, I don't want to go on the boat journey. But who knows, when they were about to get murked, they all looked pretty accepting of their fate, so maybe that's also part of the fanaticism. But unfortunately, the president and their assistant is right. So you can't just murder terrorists, even if they're terrorists. There's still due process and all that. The government has so much money and yet they can't spring for 2 separate locker rooms. But then again, who's to say this dude didn't just walk into their locker room because he's their leader? Like, open up, the boss is coming in here, we gotta do a team powwow. He thinks this is football. You just walk into the locker room with your team and just start yelling while they're naked. We see Wolfsbane, and poor Wolfsbane probably has to just use shampoo. But it's okay, she's friends with Lorna, who has, apparently by looking at her, the single best shampoo out of everybody here. Look at all that body. But yeah, Havoc fans, I'm sorry that Havoc is, while he's not wrong here, he's certainly coming off the way people perceive Scott Summers, his brother. But then again, I didn't read too many X Factor comics because they were doing shit like this. So, I can't tell you much about his personality. Good on Lorna for standing on her principles and going, nah, I'm done with this. I'm going back to school. And you know what? I give Havoc credit. He asked her, hey, you got a place to crash? Because I'm assuming he was going to put her up, which is pretty nice of him to do, considering she doesn't have a job anymore. But don't worry, the professor just opened X Corp. He's going to get you a job, girl. You got this. We're seeing a lot of stuff from the trailer in this episode, like Danger itself. But also this scene of Lorna coming home and seeing her room look exactly the way she left it when she left, because the professor wanted it to be that way. And because he's the professor, I'm sure he can just kind of like pluck the memory out of their minds of what their rooms look like before the destruction without asking them, because he admits to doing that all the time, even though he had such a problem trying to get the information out of that one guy and helping this avalanche begin with Entrepreneur. He picks and chooses when he wants to break that rule, and it's really annoying, but I'm sure he also broke it here and gave Lorna a familiar place to return to, which is very nice of him to do. At least he used his powers for good. It's genuinely so nice to see the X-Men just exist and smile and laugh and have a good time. A little tea party with the professor is just what the professor himself needs, if that makes sense. I wish somebody was here to give him this tea party, because as he talks to Lorna here, he still sounds like he's going through a lot. And poor Lorna is trying to get out of the shadow of her father. And the professor, who's still struggling with the fact that he lost him, is like, no, please be your dad. I need you to be him. Look, I get that. And while that's cool, this is about me. This is about Charles. This is about Chuck. I am really depressed. And I just need my friend back. I need to just be able to experience and be with my friend for at least 5 more minutes. And I'm like, Charles, again, healthy. This is not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for Lorna. She is more than Magneto. That's the big lesson that she gets out of this episode. Because Eric would not have handled the situation she handled with Danger in the Danger Room with the students the way she handled it. I think Lorna herself needs to be on the X-Men to kind of figure that out for herself. The Charles' school is not just about learning how to fight. It's also about learning about yourself. Again, I just wish Charles could go through that experience. Again, I have to assume that Chamber is young here, simply because of the way Bishop talks to all of them. Like, they're all snot-nosed punks. And also, Bishop's never been to, like, a school. Bishop's literally went to the School of Hard Knocks. Like, that's not a joke. That's not a slogan on a t-shirt. This man was raised in the post-apocalypse. All he knows is struggle. I'm glad that they paired him up with Polaris, because it'll help her help herself. It's weird. Her helping Bishop and these kids, it's helping her as well. Even though Danger is a horrible monster here, she ended up doing some good here at the beginning. Maybe not so much later on when she goes to Genosha. Anywhere at all, robots plus Genosha is just not a good mix. It just ain't. So anytime a robot goes to Genosha, it's a problem. I was mentioning AI before. Nobody on Genosha would accept that shit at all. So I love Morph. But why Reed Richards? Like, I get why Reed Richards, because Jump Rope, but Reed Richards can never do anything normal. It's kind of a running joke between me and my friends. Like, every time Reed Richards shows up and he's doing anything with his body, it's in the weirdest way he can possibly do it. I know it's because he can, but sometimes, should you? Even if you can? There's a new Marvel Rivals, like, emote of him getting really long to, like, take a picture, and it's the worst thing I've ever seen. Brother, why don't you just make your legs stretch? You gotta stretch your torso, dude? Why are you stretching that way? But it's cool to see Reed Richards. Bonus character we get to see every week. Okay, another Name That Mutant special. So the brain in a jar, or brain in a container, that's No Girl, which is a great name. I love that name. She's there. That's her. There she is. Next to her is Shark Girl, who I know I love. Quentin Quire, who's down there at the end with the pink hair and the Magneto Was Right t-shirt, which I wonder how Polaris feels seeing that shirt. And I wonder how Charles feels seeing that shirt. But I do believe he did actually start wearing it after Magneto died proper in the comic. I know I would want to be Quentin Quire. I love him so much because he's a little shit. But I would probably be Shark Girl, let's be real. She's badass. Everything she does is cool. She's rule of cool. She's a shark. She's a girl. She's Shark Girl. I'm not sure who's sitting next to her, but I know who's sitting next to the girl that's sitting next to her, and that's Dupe. Oh my god, it's Dupe! Do you know how long it's taken to get Dupe on TV? I haven't seen Dupe animated ever. Actually, no, I think I'm wrong about that. I think that he was animated once in, like, some Deadpool situation. I think it was the Deadpool Wolverine Hulk movie, or something like that. Dupe has been everywhere and has done a lot. There's too much to explain. We do know he's incredibly smart, and he knows magic, and all sorts of stuff. Dupe has had a long and storied life. But next to him is Beak, who I mentioned before. Then we have Dust, who I mentioned before. And now we're starting back at the bottom row. That's Eye-Boy. And I know that you're like, that's his name? Eye-Boy? He has a bunch of eyes? That's it? Yes. He can also see in different spectrums. Infrared, X-ray, all that stuff. Not to mention, he has eyes in the back of his head. He's also very funny. I love this character. I can't wait for him to do more stuff. And yeah, Chambers down here hanging out with the kids, so I guess he's one of the kids. I don't know who these other two characters are. There's Quentin, who has made an impression on me just because he's he's a little asshole. And we get only a little taste of him being an asshole here, but we do get to see some of it. So there's some even more kids that the professor is welcoming here to the school. And we also learn that Storm is the headmistress, as is tradition. She usually ends up being the leader of the school part of the school. I'm imagining that Forge teaches workshop, Beast teaches English lit or science. Wolverine is your outdoorsy teacher. He's like your camp leader who teaches you how to survive out in the wilderness. You got a good group of teachers here. Bishop teaches you hard knocks. But anyway, back to IDing these students. So we got Pixie up front. That's different than Angel, who also has wings, but Pixie has pixie wings. Angel has fly wings. That's very important. Glob Herman is obviously the Glob, who's sitting there with his skeleton exposed. I love Glob's design. He's also very funny. We get to see more of him. Behind him, the giant dude made of rocks is Rockclyde, who's also really dope. The kid who's already depressed and nothing even happened to him yet is Wing. He has a long story, which is why I recognize him, even though he is also super generic like the rest of them. He's super generic for a reason. His power is just that he could fly. Like, that's it. He could just fly. The kid that I'm possessing right now is Nature Girl, who I mentioned before. Very importantly, though, oh my god, is that Boom Boom? Because if it is, I am ready to see her and Jubilee have adventures. Look at her, they're even dressed like they're ready to party together. And there's Angel again over there with the wings. But yeah, thanks, Prof. The professor decided now's the time to teach them a terrifying lesson, to have a sentinel just open up the ceiling. These kids have just had to deal with this kind of thing. Why would you PTSD them, Professor? I guess he's like, you're gonna have to live with this shit the rest of your lives. Get used to it. I think Morph would make a great Danger Room teacher, just because Morph has the ability to like change into different people and use different powers. Hell, Morph could teach the kid that they're mimicking how to use their powers in ways they didn't even know how to use them. So, young me, if you didn't know what Bishop's powers were before, you know what they are now, right? Because it's pretty obvious what he's doing here. But I think this is really cool use of his powers. And to redirect Storm Lightning in a safer way is kind of genius, honestly, to save Wing, who is on the ground. Also, Storm knew that there was real danger here and was like, alright, I'm probably not going to wax poetic about the elements here, I'm just going to do it. Because the professor spent whoever knows how long mourning about Apocalypse and Magneto and listening to Apocalypse cut that same promo on him again and again and again, it looks like the Danger Room has picked up some of his philosophy. So good job, Professor. Because it made Polaris angry, it was able to get a lot of juice that it needed to do whatever it's doing here, to do this. And then it's like, you know what? Thanks for the juice, Polaris. I got so much juice. I'm gonna go to Genosha. I'll be right back. The Wi-Fi connection is crazy on this. We get more stuff from the trailer, and I love the idea of these two using their powers together, like Wolverine and Cyclops, because of course Danger has no idea what the hell that's about. Why would those two ever work together? So I thought that was a good idea on Jean's part. What I don't think is a good idea is these goddamn uniforms. I know, they're not bad when you see them in animation. I just hate the original way they looked in the comics. Again, the artist never did my favorite art. So seeing the costumes that he did actually get a glow up in animation is pretty dope, but it just gives me memories of looking at that crusty ass art. No offense, guy, but your art was kind of crunchy. I don't know how else to explain it, but I just didn't like looking at it. I do, however, think that Beast looks incredible in this uniform when he's not a lion. Maybe it's because I'm imagining him being drawn by that guy. I also like that they didn't give Cyclops the little pencil thin visor he has in those comics as well. I always thought, that's not gonna hide anything. How is he able? Is he just squinting the whole time? The black and yellow costumes were a response to the movies. They were like, okay, that's what's in the movies. We gotta make the characters look like the films. And so they took away their bright and colorful outfits and put them into these. It just makes me think of that really shitty line from Cyclops from the movie. Yes, motherfucker, yes! It's comic books! But again, it looks much better in animation. I'm also not a big fan of the texture of the shirts that the professor makes them wear. This is the way the character looks in the comics, but something about it also gives me a Devilman vibe. There was a Devilman OVA where he fights his subconscious, and also the monster that he's fighting looks exactly like this thing. So I thought that was a fun animation choice. Also, we get to see Danger beating people's ass. The action has such punch and speed. I'm so glad that the professor is showing off more things that he can do inside this chair, because it makes him being in the next Marvel vs. Capcom game more viable. This is what I mean about the speed and the punch. Look at this. This is incredible. Even the stills of this are kick-ass. Where the robot chooses to fight them is like a memorial, by the way. There are dead bodies literally everywhere. I'm sure there's people here doing rescue, but I remember during 9/11, there were a lot of people who weren't found in the wreckage, or who weren't found till way later. And Danger is a disrespectful asshole. I cannot get over dude being able to shoot himself out of his wheelchair like this. Yet another weapon for the moveset in the game. How close is Genosha to New York? Because they're able to get here quick. And yeah, I know they're using jets, but I want to know. I need to know. No, Charles, now's not the time to order a cheese pizza. It's dope that during this attack, Danger said fuck it. Third impact. The two of them were able to field Magneto in his chilies tonight, and they were able to save the day. With the power of remembering Magneto in the shadow of a giant broken statue of him, and probably where his remains are scattered everywhere. That's probably why they were able to feel his presence. He's literally all around you guys. You're probably inhaling him right now. And unfortunately, yet again, I have to think that this was Charles using his power to just kind of make her think about Eric that whole time, which is messed up. It's him using his power again for his own benefit. Like, yeah, he did it to help her, but he also did it because he needed to do it, because this whole thing, this whole episode was a therapy session for him. Get real help, Charles. The way you handle things is not healthy, bro. I hate to be that person to say get therapy because therapy is expensive, but dude is so rich, he just opened a mega corporation. You telling me that being a member of the board doesn't get you some sort of health benefits? Beast really looks good in this costume, doesn't he? X-Corp is here. Benefits for everyone. But also, this is less like a company, like a business, and more like a United Nations for mutants. You know, I don't remember if I've ever seen Kurt in this outfit. It looks great. I think Kurt's outfit is the best of them. Also, I don't want to be some sort of asshole telling a woman to cover up, but girl, your mutant power is if your skin touches people, they are incapacitated and you steal their memories and probably their ability to move or anything. You put Carol Danvers into a coma. Can you put on one of the mandated jackets, please? OSHA's gonna be furious about this. Yo, it's the Watcher! My boy Uatu, what you looking at? What's on TV tonight, Watcher? Oh, Uatu, you've chosen a really dark show to watch. Although, yes, I was right about this. So I figured either it was gonna be Wolverine being deaf, because that's how he got his claws back, but they went through the trouble of giving us that sequel episode to the previous one to show us, no, this is how he gets his metal back. So immediately I was like, okay, then it has to be Gambit. Why else would Apocalypse sit down and talk to Rogue about love if he wasn't gonna immediately throw that back in her face? And he does! Bro has tarot cards now. And if you know anything about tarot, these 3 cards are very significant to the life of Gambit. Death, I mean, he just turned into Death, right? Like, that's who he is. The funny thing about the card of Death is like something old is dying, something new is being born. It's rebirth. It kind of happened here, poor Gambit. The Tower is a card that I like so much, I'm planning on getting a tattoo of it. It's a toss-up between this and I think it's the 9 of Swords. Bad shit, it's bad news. Bad things be happening is the Tower. And the Lovers is very significant to Gambit in particular because, you know, he just watched his girlfriend do sexy dancing with Magneto. Do you guys remember the sexy dancing from last season? I don't know how to read them all in order, but bad things are gonna happen to his relationship, right? And a new relationship has been formed. That's just my amateur take. I am thou, thou art I. This is dope as hell. Please, Marvel, sell these inverse Gambit tarot cards, because I will buy them immediately. And then I'll have lots and lots of sets of tarot cards that I don't know how to display. If you know how to display tarot cards, please let me know in the comments so I can figure out how to display these Persona tarot cards. Everyone can relax. Gambit has arrived. The hype is so goddamn real, you don't even know. You don't even know. This episode kicks last episode's ass, and I loved last episode. Can't wait to dive more into this. I love this show. I'm so ready for more of this, and I'm so ready for like more properties for this to happen. I was watching so many shows that had terrible endings that I was just like, what is the point in watching any of this crap anymore? And I was having a really hard time getting into watching new stuff and checking out. I'm a big fan of anime. Getting back into checking out new anime. What's the point? It's just gonna either fall off or not finish, and that's been such a prevalent thing in not just animation, but in like George Martin. I'm looking at you. Somebody get him some Adderall, please. But this show has really given me back that hope that we can have good things again. If you like the video, send it to your friends, send it to your enemies, subscribe. We're trying to reach a subscriber milestone. And when we reach it, maybe we'll do a video like this for the first X-Men movie. The goal is 500 subscribers. I believe in you. I believe in us. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and checking us out. Don't let people tell you who you are. I love you.